to do this morning is I just want to put some time on this, even though I know this is kind of like a goofy chain. It's one of those homeowner style safety chains from Tractor Supply. Hey, it's not snowing and blowing, so why would I want to be inside? Even though it's muddy, I'd prefer to be outside. I've got these two saws in case this one doesn't last. I'm not going to bore you with just cut after cut after cut, but I will bore you with a few so you can hear what it sounds like with the muffler. I'm kind of curious to see what the fuel usage is going to be, and I'm also very curious to see what it's going to do on common service tool. You know, see if the mixture numbers drop like they do when I did the 562s. And I put a lot of time where I would make a change, I would run it for a while, I'd go look at common service tool and see what it told me about things like mixture, carb temp, stuff like that. And then I stepped my way through the build until I got my recipe to the point where I knew no matter what the temperature or weather was, there was enough carburetor to supply the saw. And I'll tell you, one of the things just the very last video did was show that auto-tune can really cover for a lot of faults. And in this case, it covered for me not having a fuel filter on the fuel line, which I thought was pretty funny. All right, let's see what this thing sounds like now. See if it continues to stall. Well, I don't know if you can tell, but that damn thing rips. So, with very, very few changes, that's essentially a stock saw from my perspective. It has no porting done at all. It's just the muffler mod and the piston. And it really does rip. I don't think my little 562 is in the same league as this. And the funny thing is, horsepower is an amazing thing. And chain speed is an amazing thing. That's junk for a chain. So let's see whether or not we can get it to fire without going to high idle. I'm going to push decomp in and we'll see if it goes one pull. Nope. Alright, we got to go to high idle. What that means is I need to tune it. back here where we can chat. So the first thing I'm going to do is let it sit for 3 minutes. I'm not going to bore you with it, but I'm going to let it sit for 3 minutes so it tunes the low side. And then I'm going to use one of those longer to do the high side tune. The funny thing is, I do it today. Tomorrow's going to be, say, freezing. I'll do it again. And you'll see that saw wake up both times. Actually, it's running pretty good now. It's running a little bit fat. And that's because I had it tuned for about 25 degrees. So. And if you listen to it, you can hear it just picked up RPM just a slight bit, so it's actually probably done with its little tune and its little adjustment right now. It'd be hard to tell, but if you're sitting there right next to it, you can tell. It wasn't that far off, it was just a little back. So, now, what'll happen is it'll tune itself, but then it's going to change the baseline setting. So that when I fire it up the next time, it'll be at that new setting. That's why you wait for 3 minutes. All right, should start. The first clue that it's tuned itself is just that. I'll do it again, where I shut it off, and then I did a pull, and it restarted the first pull. And then I'm going to do a tuning cut for 40-45 seconds. And that's going to get it warm, and then I'll shut it off, and we'll see if it restarts. And if it does, that means it's basically ready to go. Alright, so is the bottom end tuned now? Alright, I'll let it heat soak for a couple of seconds. But I can tell you right now, that is a good running saw. see if it restarts. You can see the difference between that and when I first started running that saw, where I did pretty much the same amount of work, but then it wouldn't restart without going to high idle. After doing the field tune that I just did, it does this. Alright, I think that's ready to go. Now I've got an 8-pin sprocket on that thing, and I wanted to put a 28-inch bar on it, but an 8-pin with a 28, it's a little bit much. You know, I would say I'd probably lose a little bit of speed. I might just do it anyway, but that saw is running beautifully. I'm quite pleased with the way it turned out for a junk pile build. Now, there's another couple little details that I need to explore with this saw. One is with the with this series of saw, there's two sets of anti-vibe springs. There's a hard and a soft, and I've got the soft ones in that one right now because that's what came with the saw. I'm contemplating putting the hard ones on and then running a long bar, because you probably need the stiffer anti-vibe springs, you know, for that situation where it's going to get more leverage. And I ordered one of those screws right there for limiting the amount of motion when you're pushing it around. So I went to CNY, you know, and I was able to order actually pretty much everything I needed to finish that saw the way I wanted it done. One thing I'm going to replace is the filter holder because it was broken in there, and I'm going to the hard anti-vibe springs. A couple of little details like that, but where I was finding online, like eBay, places like that, the parts were pretty much hard to find. When I went down to CNY, and I guess we'll wait and see how long it takes to come, but they were basically saying that they had them at the supply depots, and the parts would be available for me when I needed them. Notice where the bar oil adjustment is right there. This is a very, very nice saw. Very nice saw. Quite pleased. So yeah, the handle's a little tweaked. Not bad. I mean, all these saws were rollovers, and you can tell when you look straight down on it there's a little twist to the saw, and that's because the handle is bent. Now I may put the full wrap on there and it'll straighten things right up, or I may just run it the way it is. I think running it the way it is in character with my channel, the old Cyclops thing, you know, old beater saws. The new handle kind of takes away a little bit from that. Of course, the short block that was on there does as well. New piston, but stock, same cylinder, no porting in muffler mod. But I do 32-to-1, but I pick my oils carefully. And I found that it takes usually 5 to 6 tanks for those things to wake right up, sometimes 8 to 10 for them to actually break in. A lot of it depends on how much full throttle time you have. I run them, you know, but it's funny when you put that thing on common service tool, you're going to see that it actually was in full throttle for maybe
I don't know, 40% of its runtime, and the rest of it's low throttle or idle. And that's something that people don't get, because they feel the saw when they're in the cut, but they put it down, they shift logs around, whatever they're doing, and there's an awful lot of time where it's just idling, and that shows up in Common Service Tool. But it says it's getting low on fuel. So let me go put some gas and oil in it. And what I can tell you is it runs 100% better than it did the other day when it didn't have that fuel filter in the tank. No stall and none of that kind of shenanigans. Now notice the external clutch internal sprocket on the 562 versus the external sprocket internal clutch on the 572. Which one do you think I like better? Especially working out here in the field. Now I get it. When you look at these two designs, having the clutch in all its heat away from the cases versus in the cases means that doesn't get into the saw, and theoretically there's less heat on that PTO side bearing on that design versus this one right here. And I like the angle of the muffler mod I did on that one better than this one. I'm going to have to do a better job. That's my first one on these. And I didn't really know what I could get away with, but I think I need to rotate it down and to the side more. They both have the captured nuts, which I think is cool. In terms of the actual builds between these two saws, the 562 does in fact have a little bit of port work on it. And when I did that saw, I spent a lot of time trying to make sure I didn't push the limits on the carb's ability to deliver fuel, and I think it paid off. But the other thing was, instead of going for peak power, I kind of went for a little more torque. Basically trying to make that 562 feel like a little bit larger displacement saw than it is. What do you think? See if it'll pull that. But, and that little sequence right there, if you've been watching my channel, it demonstrated two things pretty quick. Number one, I don't like that chain. All right, that's a brand new chain, but I don't like it. And number two, that this saw really can't pull a 28-inch bar with an 8-pin sprocket with authority, in my humble opinion. So it needs a 7-tooth sprocket. I'm going to try to hit some of that with an axe, and then I'm going over to where the trailer is and start working over there. The goal today is to fill up that trailer, and once that trailer is full, my firewood for this year is done. Everything else will be for next year. And takeaway so far is I need to rotate the outlet of that muffler just a little bit. Kind of knew it. I may just run it the way it is, but it needs to come down and to the side more. It looks to me like I actually have the clearance to do that. So that's what I call research and development, and I've learned. Runs good. Definitely runs good. Remember when I ran it last, it didn't have the fuel line in the fuel properly. It didn't have the fuel filter to hold it down. So it ran decent, but it runs a lot better now. A lot better throttle response. And so that's the first takeaway. The second one is when I put that full length of the 28 in the wood, yeah, it pulled it, but it didn't pull it with authority. I need to go from an 8-pin to a 7-pin to make that happen. And funny thing is, you see guys talk about that, and then they go stick it in a 20-inch piece of wood. It doesn't really matter if it's 20-inch bar or 28. When you got a span on 20 inches, it's about the same number of teeth pulling on the wood. Yeah, there's a little extra bar length for extra resistance and stuff like that, but point being is where the teeth meet the wood, really the only way to know if that 28's being pulled with authority is when you have all of them, all 28 inches in the piece of wood, and that build right there, I mean, I could work with it, but I think I'd rather go to a 7 and not stress the clutch as much. So when I'm just like using that to reach down and, you know, block up that 8-pin would be fine. You know, a little more chain speed, lemon, stuff like that would be fine. But with me, the reason I have a 28 is because of the size of the wood. And I'm not one of those who kind of reach all over the place with a bar because they can't bend over. So the chain speed is nice, but the power is more important. So the 8-pin has to go. That's the decision. Let's see if it starts now that it's been sitting. Again, this is like the 3rd or 4th time. See what I need to have for a strategy. When you see the chips flying forward, that's because they can't come out here. It's clogged up. And that's because this little piece of rubber here is not letting the chips flow out freely. So I'll probably have to replace that because that matters. Details, details, details. That throttle response was excellent before, it's only getting better. Well, it's a rain out now. I put 3 tanks through it, and I don't know how much I got. The front of the camera was closed, but a lot of firewood, a lot of noodling. Runs good, runs better and better.